So we're halfway through. This is lesson 7, and we are going to do, all it is multiplication again, but I'm going to show you some special shortcuts for some special products.
Find the squares of sums and differences. Find the product of a sum and a difference.
Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the sum of a square. It follows a specific pattern. If you see here, I have a plus b squared. That square means I take that quantity inside the parentheses and I write it twice. And then if I use my distributive property, a times a is a squared, a times a is ab. Then I use my distributive property, or foiling again, b times a is ab, and b times b is b squared. And then I combine my like terms, and here's what happens. My answer is always going to be in the sum of a square. The first term squared, the second term squared, the first term times the second term, and then I double it. So let's see. We're going to use this pattern here, and we're going to square the quantity 4y plus 5. So our first term is 4y, our second term is 5. So all we do is you can square the first term. So 4y squared is 16y squared. And square the second term, that's our b squared. 5 squared is 25. And then to get the middle term, all I do is first term times second term. 4y times 5 is 20y, and then I double it, so times 2, so that middle term is 40y. Now we're going to check that by, alright, so when we do the foiling, we do our first times first. So there's what we get when we multiply our first terms together. Our outer, the two the furthest away from each other, then our inner, the ones on the inside, and finally last times last. So here's our multiplication, and when we combine our like terms, we get the same thing that we got before. So all it is just a little shortcut. You can still FOIL it out and you're going to get the same answer. Alright, this is the square of a difference. So what that means is there's subtraction between the two terms instead of addition. And it follows the same pattern as the square of a sum. It's just that sign's minus. So when there's a minus between them, that sign's negative. It's the only difference between the two. So here we're going to use, with the pattern, we're going to use the quantity 6p minus 1 squared, and we're going to use, here's our pattern, so all I have to do is square the first term. 6 times 6 is 36, and it's p squared. I know since it's a difference, my next term is going to be negative. Then I take my first term, multiply it by my second, which gives me negative 6p, and then I multiply it by 2, which gives me 12p. And then finally, I square that last term, which gives me 1. Alright, so here's 2 for you to try on your own. Here is the square of a sum and the square of a difference. So, see if you can use the special pattern, or if you need to, FOIL it out. You're going to get the same answer in the end. Restart the video when you're done to check your work. Alright, here's what I got. If you've got any questions about how I got it, ask me in class. Alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about, the last special pattern, is the product of the sum and a difference. So here's a sum, here's a difference, and we're multiplying them together. So look what happens when we FOIL these. This is my first term when I multiply them. This is my outer terms. This is my inner. And finally, last times last. When I combine my like terms, these two cancel out. And that's always going to happen with a sum and difference. So, all you have to do to find a shortcut to multiplying a sum and difference is square the first term, square the second term, and put a minus sign in between them. Now you only have a sum and difference when your first term in each parenthesis is your same and the second term in each parenthesis is the same and your signs in between them are opposite. So here, let's see what happens here. 3n, 3n. First term's the same. 2, 2. Second term's the same, and they have opposite signs between them. So my shortcut to factoring is square the first term. 3n squared is 3n all to the second power is 9n squared. And 2 squared is 4, and I put a minus sign between them. And I'm done. Alright, here's 2 for you to try on your own. So pause the video, and when you're ready to recheck your work, start it. It's the sum and difference, multiplying sum and differences. Okay, so here's what I got on mine. If you got something different, we'll talk about it in class. So here's a review of all of the concepts we went over. Here is the pattern it follows when you're squaring a sum. Here's the pattern when you're squaring a difference. And here is the pattern. Here's what happens when you do the product of a sum and a difference. And that's the end.